Okay, it says we're live. Woo-hoo! All right. Hey, everybody. Let's see. If you're out there, give us a shout in the chat. Say hello to us. We're real excited about this. It's going to be a lot of fun. I see 12 people are here already, so that's cool. Before I get too much into this, I just want to say what a privilege and pleasure it is to be here. I mean, technology is so awesome that I get to come on here and talk to someone else who has the same love that I do and who's really awesome at what he does. Okay, we've got some people talking. Hey, Karen. Hey, Richard. And
Hey, guys. Hello, hello.
All right, so I'm sure everybody knows one of the people here, and that's Mr. Bing Futch. So he probably doesn't need much of an introduction, but I'd like to tell you about Bing Futch. But really, I'll just let him tell you about himself during this whole interview. Hey, John. Hey, Jason. Yeah, I see that. So if you have questions during this live stream, I wanted to tell you this before we get started. If you don't already have a YouTube channel, you're not going to be able to ask questions. So you can really quick make a free one and get on here and chat with us if you want to do that as well. But, all right, we are here today with Mr. Bing Futch, folk craft artist extraordinaire, and we're going to be asking him some questions. So if you have questions during this, go ahead and leave it in the chat. First off, I'll just let him say hello to y'all.
Hey, guys. How you doing? Happy Friday. Hope you're ready for an awesome, awesome weekend, that the weather is being kind wherever you are.
Yes, I'm lucky in that it's nice and sunny here, but one problem is the pollen. It is just absolutely killing me right now, but
I imagine, yes, it's a little dense down here as well, and we've got some sort of mountain, Sahara, the Sahara effect, where they blow all that sand across the ocean. That's starting to show up now, so lots of claret and
yes. Oh, yes. I'm on that daily, but anyway, I guess we'll just go ahead and get started. First off, I just thought we'd ease into this because I don't know if you've told this before. You probably have, but I haven't heard it. So how did you first come across a dulcimer, a mountain dulcimer?
Well, what a great question, and thank you for doing this, by the way, Mandy. Really appreciate it. I was working at Knott's Berry Farm Theme Park in Southern California, and I was working in parking control, not what I was aiming for, but nonetheless, I was coming back from lunch, going through Ghost Town, and I heard this sound coming off the porch of the Gold Trails Hotel. I'd never heard anything like it before, so I just kind of wandered around the corner, and there was this woman playing this amazing instrument, and she was way up on a porch, right? So when I come walking up, I'm like Kilroy. All she can see are like, the top of my head, and I'm like, what's that?
Yeah.
She said, I'll have you playing this in 5 minutes. And I went, sure you will. And I had been messing around with like keyboards and bass guitar. I hadn't really found my instrument yet, so I was really intrigued that maybe this was it. 5 minutes later, she had me playing something simple, and something resonated within me. And so I came back that week. I bought my first teardrop, which I still have on the wall.
Oh,
and
awesome.
About a month later, I transferred out of parking control and into the dulcimer shop. And I worked for Bud and Donna Ford of Cripple Creek Dulcimers there for the rest of the summer. That was 1986 at Knott's Berry Farm.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet. So you just fell in love.
Yeah, it was just an immediate thing. There was something really barefoot in the dirt about it, and I just loved that about it. And so it really kind of took over. And even though I struggled to find out how to apply it coming from chromatic instruments, it still has been something that's been in my life really ever since my high school days. So I feel fortunate that I found it early.
Yeah, that's really awesome that you did. And we've got a couple more coming in. Hey, Lori. And she says there's a thunderstorm warning. Oh no, I'm sorry.
It's that time of year.
Yes, it is. The mountain dulcimer is just such an amazing thing. And I really like and enjoy hearing how people first heard it, because it's sort of similar with me, but anyway, so once you heard the beautiful sounds and she had you playing and you got that teardrop, how long did it take you really before you were feeling fluid on it and wanted to start performing on it, or what sort of got you into that?
I started messing around with it, and since I jumped right out of high school into a band, my first band, Teacher's Aid with Robert Diebel, and like Robert Diebel's like a big deal guy. All of it now, he's been for a while. Anyway, I was playing around already, and so immediately I began recording with it. Just use self vanity releases, where you do all your own artwork, and it's like cassette tapes, and I had a little 4-track machine, a Fostex X15, and started recording in '86 with some of my solo releases with the Mountain Dulcimer. I wasn't doing a lot of performance because I didn't feel like I was ready at that point. And it wasn't probably until the early '90s that I actually started playing out with the dulcimer. But my big problem was that I could never find a good way to amplify it.
Yeah.
So I lean more on the keyboard side than the dulcimer side, primarily because of just trying to get it loud enough for playing in front of an audience.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's going to lead me into something else, I have a feeling. So that's going to lead me into something later, hopefully I'll remember it. But before we get too far into this, I wanted to ask, what are your upcoming events that you have that are right around the corner that you might want to share with everybody?
Well, coming right up later this month, in fact, next week, will be the 70th annual Florida Folk Festival at Stephen Foster Folk Culture Center State Park in White Springs, Florida. It's next Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I'll roll into camp next Thursday. This is always an amazing time, and it's been gone for the past couple of years due to the pandemic. So it's kind of a homecoming for a lot of the Florida artists, and they always have great headliners, and it's all artists from the state of Florida. So it's really a celebration of the state and the culture and the legacy. And so, but you can find so many different types of music, from the old cracker songs to the music of the Seminole Indians. So it's just all really fabulous. So that's coming up next week. Then we'll be into Memorial Day and into summer. Kentucky Music Week is coming up, and I'll be there. That's the last week of June, or the third week of June. Big deal, a week-long thing in Bardstown, Kentucky. You can still register for that if you like. It's one of the big ones. It's the first dulcimer festival I went to when I didn't realize that there was such a thing as dulcimer festivals.
Yeah.
Steven Seifert told me, you should go to a dulcimer festival. I'm like, what's that? Which one should I go to? He's like, go to KMW. So if you've never been, and if you've been curious about it this year, go to KMW this year. Quite a few places. It's all on my website at bingfutch.com. There's a whole schedule page there. The big one this fall will be the Walnut Valley Festival, which is Winfield, as people like to call it. You've been there, haven't you?
Oh, no, I haven't been there, but I've watched it,
It's a bucket list for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's awesome. I saw you whenever, I can't remember when it was, but it was recently. You and Abby did a little set there.
Yeah.
Between campers, and it was really cool. So, yeah.
Abby's great. She lives in Winfield now.
Yeah.
And so it was nice to meet her finally after kind of corresponding back and forth and being on the same bill at places, but never having a chance to talk. So I think she used to live in North Carolina. Abby the Spoon Lady, for those of you who don't know, she has her own YouTube channel as well.
Yes, and she is very, very big in the busking community as well. So, you've got your first question from Lori.
Excellent.
She says, Bing, how many dulcimers do you have?
How many dulcimers do I have? That's a good question. I think the count now is somewhere hovering around 14. And a good number of these are wall hangers, dulcimers that I've gotten off of eBay or somebody passed down or whatever. But some of them are ones that just I won't play much anymore because they've attained a certain quality. Like my older dulcimers, I don't want to break or take on the road. I'll take them down every now and again. As far as dulcimers, I consider my A team that travel with me a lot. I've got 7 that are my core that I really work with all the time. And they all serve very, very specific functions. But if one of those kind of falls out of line, I've got like a B team. And then I've got the wall hanger. So about, I don't know, it goes back and forth between like 15 and 17 probably.
Okay, that's cool. And I'm sure you have a favorite one too. If you want to share that with us, I'm sure we'd like to hear it, but
Wow. Well, gosh, it's tough to call a favorite,
yeah,
but
it is.
I might have to say the very, very first dulcimer that Fullcraft made for me when I became an endorsing artist. For those of you who don't know, I actually worked for Fullcraft at Walt Disney World back in 1994 when David Mark still owned the company. And many of my paychecks went right back into Fullcraft because I'd buy dulcimers. Um, so when Richard bought the company in 2007 and had me on board, he said, "Pie in the sky dulcimer, Bing, build us. If you could have the dulcimer of your dreams, what would it be?" And they built Annie. And so I believe Annie is my favorite because it was the very, very first in this partnership with Fullcraft. And she is a sweet beast for those of you who have not seen her. She's a double dulcimer with just really wonderful choice of woods, butternut and walnut, with a nice pick guard that Steve Ash made that's very unique. I don't think Fullcraft made a lot of them with these pick guards.
Yeah.
And she has a great sound. She's mellowed wonderfully over the years, and she has to be my favorite. Absolutely, it's Annie.
Awesome, awesome. And I've seen that one a lot in your videos, I think.
Yeah,
That pick guard, I wanted to ask you about that. Is that wood or what is that pick guard?
that is wood down there.
Nice.
And I've only seen it on the doubles. It's something that Steve was trying. I've got two with this pick guard. And it's like a three-piece pick guard that's on the outside parts and also in the middle. I think it looks really smart. And I mean, I have never seen a standard dulcimer with this. So I don't know if Steve ever made any of those. And I don't know if Richard's doing any of that now, but it looks really cool.
Yeah, it does. It is very striking. And I've seen on several of your instruments just from watching the videos and stuff, they get worn there in that pick area. And mine are doing that too, because you're playing it all the time.
Yeah.
So that's something that I took note of and thought that's pretty cool. I want to ask him about that. So now I know you're right in the middle of your traveling and all that, but are you working on a new album or anything like that? What's going on that front?
I am. The plan is,
Yeah.
you know how that goes. The plan is to sort of being in a state of constant recording, and when I'm in the studio, and then kind of assign projects to different columns. I've got a lot of projects that I can add to that are series, like Dulcimerica Volume 4 on the books, the Dulcimerica, the Mountain Dulcimer in the Band series. I could record stuff for Book 8. The follow-up to The Beauty and the Terror, another Native American flute record. So depending on what's being recorded, instead of trying to focus on one album, I kind of fill up until I get one column stacked, and then I'll commit to an album of sorts. That tends to work. That has worked in the past, but I'm trying to work a little bit differently this year. But I'm working on several projects at once. But I think right now the main focus is just writing some different types of material, challenging myself to tackle the pop genre in a way I haven't done so before. Inspired by Ron and Russell Mael of Sparks and the Sherman Brothers of Walt Disney fame. And I don't know how you combine those two elements, but that's my main goal now, is to write some stuff that would possibly be sort of inspired by those two camps.
Yeah. And I know about the whole you've got 100 things going all the time, and that's kind of the way it feels like, for me, even though I don't really go out and perform much, but I'm still doing the same sort of thing, and it's just a never-ending cycle. But you always want to keep that creativity going and everything. Okay, I thought we had another question. That reminds me also, I want to break and say, for anybody out there, if you have a question for Bing, just go ahead and put it in the chat there, and we'll get to it. Let me ask you this too. Okay. Favorite string gauges. Do you just have a set you use, or what do you like?
It depends on the dulcimer, and it depends on the type of music that I'm playing. For example, for a general application, for maybe a standard dulcimer, I would pull off the Fullcraft wall. I like to go with a 0.026 Brown's wound on the bass, 0.016 on the middle string, nickel, and 0.014 on the melody string. I'll go back and forth between a 13 or a 14 on the melody string. And I tend to go with a single chorus, not double melody chorus on that melody string. for a more uniform feel across the board. When I put this into a string calculator, it gives me a nice equal pressure across the board. All the strings have the same amount of pressure on them, so the feel is the same. I find that with some of the dulcimer sets that are out there, that middle string has the least amount of tension. And so if you're applying the same pressure across all the three strings, that one gets a little bit more push. So it goes sharper a lot easier, you know?
Yep.
So I like to pull that and just get that tension up a little bit. So that 0.016 sounds like it might be intense, but it works really well to get your intonation in good. And to get it feeling more like the other two strings, because they're wound fairly tight. The melody string's got a lot of pressure. The bass string's sort of mellower. The middle string is like spaghetti. You use a real light string.
Yeah, and that just leads me right into another one about VSL. What's your preferred VSL? That's vibrating string length for anybody who doesn't know that.
Yeah.
The nut and the bridge of your strings there.
I like around an average of 27.
Yeah.
27, 28. I have one buttercup that's 29. That is quite a handful, but I love the sustain and the tone and the resonance I get with that. But it's almost a surfboard. Jerry Rockwell made one that had a 30-inch. It was ridiculous. Super. You had to have the fingers of Tull Glazner to play it, man. It was just like, 30 inches. Ridiculous. 26 is about 26 and 25 on a large acoustic instrument is about as low as I might go.
Yeah.
But I've been playing a lot with the smaller fretboards that, the 24-inch. And I like it a lot, this ginger size. I like it a lot. I like the scale, I like the playability, but it's for electric, or you've got something else that's going to be handling the volume. As far as the volume for an acoustic instrument, I think after 25, 24, you start to lose some of that tone and that volume. So it depends on the application and whether you have a pickup or not. Are you going to be projecting? Are you blending that signal with another signal and using a microphone? Do you need more resonance, or do you just need good tone and playability? And I think these are all really, really good questions, probably more than we need for a simple instrument.
But it really makes a difference, especially if you have smaller hands. It really does make a difference if you go down to the smaller size, but you are, you're sacrificing a little bit of sound to do so. But we've got another question. What other instruments do you play, and is the dulcimer your main instrument?
What? Other instruments? Watch it.
Yeah.
Well, other instruments, I play keyboards. Oh, I'm getting kind of feedback, echo now. I play keyboards. I play Native American flute, ukulele. I play at a number of instruments, but those are the ones I feel like I can do an honest job on. But the mountain dulcimer, I would say, is largely it's my main instrument for songwriting, for performance. I spend most of my time with this instrument, and it wasn't always the case. For 25 years after I left Knott's Berry Farm, I didn't see another mountain dulcimer performer. This is pre-internet, so there was no source of videos and things like that. And I figured they had sold me a toy. Like, no one plays a mountain dulcimer. No one plays this. This is just something that somebody made up. And I moved to the East Coast and ended up at a Central Florida fair. Never forget that day. I walked through this door, and in this exhibit building were 25 or 30 mountain dulcimer players in a circle. And I went, oh my gosh, my people. But for all that time in the wilderness, I wasn't sure what to do with the instrument. So I didn't put all my eggs in that basket. It wasn't until about 1999, I literally just said, I want to play something that's more natural than having to plug it in and have to use it with programs and digital stuff. So I looked at mountain dulcimer and said, I'm going to force myself to work with this primarily so I can get back to my roots. And that's pretty much been the way I've been ever since.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
I love it.
That's amazing. And I've seen, I'm sure everybody watches Dulcimerica. If you don't, make sure you go down below in the description here. You can go to Bing's channel and subscribe there and see all his awesome videos that he puts out. as well as his website's down below too. So you can check out his calendar on there to see where he's going to be. You can get his books, all kinds of stuff there. Well, but you have, I mean, do you record in your own studio there at the house, or do you actually go to a recording studio?
Yeah, I have a project studio here, and I do everything here. All the videos done here, and all the albums since Clear Blue Trickling by Mojave. That was the last thing that I ever did in a studio, and that was 2005 or so.
Yeah, been a while.
Yeah, so pretty much everything since then has been recorded here. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. I've seen some of your equipment, you know, in the videos. You know, you might want to make a video about that. Show us all your equipment. That would be a cool video, I think, because
Well, I do a series of workshops about home studio recording, and that's involved. If you're on my Patreon, I've got thousands of hours of videos in the vault there. But there's a whole series where I actually go through, show the different digital audio workstations I use, and take people step by step through the process. This is interesting. More people, I think, are really into doing recording. It didn't used to be the case. Like, oh, I don't want to even perform. I just want to play my mountain dulcimer for me, which is awesome, right? But over the years, it seems like more and more people have decided to share their music with other people via YouTube, playing in church, or playing as music therapy. And so on top of that, more people are recording these days. So I actually do a workshop that's all about preparing yourself for recording. And I do it in person. I also do a virtual version. And I'm always surprised at how many people show up with their laptops and their audio interfaces and their microphones going, okay, I bought all this gear. Help me put it together.
Hey, you know? That really makes a lot of sense to me. I'm at that point. I'm you know, I turn the camera on and I play. And, you know, now there's, you know, all this stuff, and I'm just old school before the internet and everything too. So I don't even know how to record really very well at all. But it's kind of funny. You know, I can really picture a ton of people showing up to that, because it is, for somebody who doesn't really understand all that, it's a huge, crazy little maze of stuff out there. And you don't really know what even to buy, you know, what's going to make this happen.
It can be very daunting. It can be very daunting. I try and break it down because there's a lot of things there's a lot of rabbit holes you can go down. So I try and break down everything, whether it's music theory or music production or simply playing. Try and break it down to the bare essentials. And with recording, it's basically get something to record on or into, get something to record through, and have something to record with an instrument. And that's it. Think about your instrument and what do you need to do to get it to plug into something. And that's the interface between you and the computer. Those three things, and then worry about the rest. There's a big, long road to go down. But once you get those things gear-wise, you can start experimenting. And if you're a Mac user, you can use a free program called GarageBand. It's built right into the Mac operating system, and start experimenting. If you're a PC user, use Audacity, which is a free program. And you can't harm anything. If you record something, it's called non-destructive editing. You can do all kinds of horrible things to it, but the original copy will always be there. So feel free to just get into your programs and start messing with stuff, and trial by error. It's a lot easier than trying to worry about, you know, the next.
Yeah. And that leads me into this. You know, it's a very new thing, at least to me, that dulcimers sometimes have pickups in them now. So I believe that you're a big part of that within Folkcraft. So share that with me, if you will.
Well, one of the things that Richard asked about the dulcimer, when he said pie in the sky, what do you want? The one thing I noticed that I had been having the trouble the most with, and this is what kept the mountain dulcimer from being my main instrument earlier, was that I didn't have a built-in pickup like guitarists do, a way of controlling the volume, and also having like a little preamp and a little equalizer to kind of control the sound depending on where I was. I said, I would love to see that happen. And this was something that Richard and Steve really had to work on, because these things are not small. You know, guitars were really big, and so it's easier to put this piece of gear in there. But as far as the depth of the dulcimer, it was difficult to find something that was going to fit as a component and be practical. And they finally ended up talking to Fishman and worked out with a unit that was going to be small enough to fit in the side of the dulcimer. And at that time, it was the Fishman Prefix Pro, I think, was the first model on those first dulcimers. And then they went through a couple of different versions. And I've always kind of worked closely with Fullcraft and road testing it, you know, how it's doing in certain situations, how it's doing in humidity. You know, there was one called the Blend, not the Blend. Oh, what was the one? It came in between the Prefix Pro and the Blend, which is what's being used right now. The Aura. It was the Aura. And the Aura was an amazing, it was like a Rolls Royce pickup and preamp combo, but it was maybe a little too sophisticated. But I think there was only one that existed. And then I actually had Richard take that out. So I think that's actually back at the shop somewhere. Anyway, it was really interesting. And now that I see it, no other dulcimer maker that I know of offers a preamp standard like Fullcraft. So that was a real edgy thing to do. And I'm really happy to see that they continue to have not only the preamp, but also have another option in the magnetic pickup, which is great for tone, fabulous for tone. It's so beautifully silky and true and whispery quiet. And that's the NT11 pickup. So you have a couple of options. You can get both of those on your dulcimer as well and blend the two of those together. Nice round signal.
Yeah, awesome. Now let me ask you about the Galax back, with or without, and why?
Oh, you know, why not? You know, it's like, it's a question of getting the actual vibrating back of the instrument off of your lap, you know, so that it can do what it's supposed to do, which is vibrate some more. Everybody's taken a dulcimer on their lap and strummed it and then lifted it and heard that sound get louder and open, you know, it actually opens up like a weight's been lifted off your chest, right?
Yeah.
Because that back's being muted by our lap. So the Galax back basically is what sits on your lap. The actual back of the instrument isn't touching your lap anymore, and it's allowed to do what it's supposed to do. So it's really great for volume. It's really great for sustain, and it's good for cutting through the mustard. So if you're somebody who's having an issue with that in your dulcimer group, I would recommend the Galax back. Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. I have a question that I need to ask here. Let me see if I can get it pop up on the screen. I think I can. Richard asks, make sure Bing shares the Disney dulcimer story.
The Disney, which one?
Oh, he didn't make that clear, huh?
Is there a Disney dulcimer story?
I'm sure there is.
Does it have something to do with the long gestating Disney book of Disney songs? The simple answer to that is the reason it hasn't happened yet is licensing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, right. But remind me, Richard. I'll think about it.
Okay, Chuck. Hey, Chuck. Chuck Mosley's on. He's asking which recording software.
I use Logic Pro on Mac, and that's native. Not native, but it's native Mac, and so it works really well with Mac. I'm not sure if they've got a PC version, but I like Logic Pro a lot. I started on GarageBand, the free version, and GarageBand basically is training wheels for Logic. So once you get fluid with working with GarageBand, it's a very, very easy step to get into Logic Pro. When I was working with PC, I use Sibelius to do a lot of recording, but Sibelius is actually more of a notation software, but I was using it as a recording software because I was recording MIDI. So I really couldn't tell you. A lot of people like to use Ableton Live. A lot of people like Pro Tools. I can't speak to how easy they are to use. Pro Tools seems to be a little complex, but as far as Logic or GarageBand for you Mac users out there, GarageBand is super, super easy. There's even an easy mode that'll ease you into it. And then when you move to Logic Pro, there's an easy mode that actually simulates GarageBand, and then you can kind of layer or level up as you get more confident, and it adds more and more functionality. Really cool stuff. But Logic Pro is what I'm using. It's number 2.
Okay, so Richard said Rob B, question mark. Does that jog your memory any?
Rob B. Oh, yeah. So, okay, yeah. He may have been, he wasn't here when I was talking about this. I first moved to Florida in 1993 and worked at SeaWorld and other stuff. But I really wanted to work at Disney. Who doesn't want to work at Disney World, right? So in 94, I actually was walking around the Disney Village Marketplace, and there was a shop and a guy in dulcimers. And I hadn't seen a dulcimer shop or a guy playing dulcimers for like a long time. So I run up and I start playing the dulcimer with all the stuff I've been messing with for the past however many years. And he just looked at me and went, "Wow, do you want a job?" And I went, "Sure." And it was David Marks. He was working the store. He didn't have anybody to work it. Well, he needs to be back up in Connecticut building dulcimers. So he was happy to meet me that day. So I started working for Fullcraft. And every once in a while, they sent somebody down who also worked for Fullcraft, who would sort of just kind of help with paper and paperwork and whatever else. And that's where I met Rob Brereton. And Rob Brereton and I worked side by side. And this was right after his album, Someone to Watch Over Me, came out. And he was my first exposure to what modern mountain dulcimer players sound like. And if you've never heard Rob play, he is stunning, a stunning player who uses the 1-3-5 tuning quite a bit to fabulous effect. But check out his album, Someone to Watch Over Me. And for a long time, I worked side by side with Rob Brereton there at the Fullcraft shop at Disney. It was kind of fun. And then years later, we bring up these kind of, he's like, "I remember that. That was so strange."
Oh, that's awesome. How long did you work there?
It wasn't very long. It was like maybe for the spring and the summer. And I think they were looking to phase out at some point because they used to have a shop inside Epcot as well. And they took over from another dulcimer builder. So they were more places, but I think Disney just sort of started squeezing them more and taking them out of more places and giving them a smaller cut and asking for more of a cut. And I think David just finally said, "This isn't worth it anymore." So they got out. But for a long time, Fullcraft was the last dulcimer maker to be showcased at Epcot, inside Epcot.
Well, in Florida, you mean, right?
In Florida, yeah.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome. That's really awesome. I can't imagine seeing a dulcimer in Disney. That'd be a dream. I mean, that's just really cool.
Yeah.
To see yourself, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, here's a question for you. My husband asks, he says that I'm getting blown out at church by 2 dreadnoughts, and this is very true. So I'll be in there with my dulcimer in the middle and 2 big old dreadnought guitars, and we're singing and everything. And we're trying to get the mix right, and it's hard. It's really hard to do. But right now I think we're using an amp for me on the dulcimer because I have the prefix preamp in one of my dulcimers. So we're using that, and then we're putting, we don't have any mics on the guitars at all. They're just, the vocal mics are picking them up, you know, and they're still kind of blasting me out. You know, how do you figure out the mix in a live setting like that, you know? You don't have this big fancy, you know, sound guy back there. Right. You've got to figure it out sometimes, you know? How do you do that? I mean, what do you have to do to figure it out?
The easiest way I think about sound is think about the sound spectrum as a loaf of bread. You know, one side of it is the lowest sounds and one side of it's the highest sounds that we can hear. And the human, as humans, we can perceive a range from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. As we get older, we lose like the edges of that. You know, we hear most things in a range between 800 hertz and like 1,000, 2,000 hertz very, very clearly. So it's understanding this sort of loaf of bread. And when you hear things low, when you're in the car stereo, you have 3 dials: bass, treble, and then mid, right? Mm-hmm. Bass is your low, mid is in the middle, and treble is your high. And so they control the lowest end, the highest end, and the middle of that slice of bread. If things sound muffled and kind of really overly warm and so forth, there's too much bass. If things sound really high and tinny and thin and almost like they could shatter, there's too much treble, too much high end. If things sound congested and kind of weird on the ears, like uncomfortable, it's too much mid. They're very, very easy sort of ways to kind of detect. So if you're in the middle of these two dreadnoughts, you've got this big guitar body and a lot of bass end. So you're really getting drowned out by a lot by the bass. So a couple of things you could do. You could either cut some of the bass off of the microphone, because if it's picking up the guitars, if you roll it off at about 50, 60, 70 hertz, then that'll keep the guitar rumble from going into the microphone, and it'll cut out some of the competition for what you're doing on the mountain dulcimer. Nice. Mountain dulcimer likes to live between 200 hertz and like 900 hertz, right about there. It's the middle of the bread, and the guitars are occupying that and a little lower. So you have to sculpt it a little bit. So on your channel strip there, take your bass down, take your mids up a little bit, and take your highs up a little bit, and that'll park them a little bit above the threshold where the guitars are.
Okay. See, I was doing layering. Okay. That's cool. Thank you for that. And about the mids, when you were saying that too, that really made sense to me, because I think we're having a lot of that muddiness, kind of thing. We've got another question. Okay.
And one thing real quick I want to say, if the best thing to do if you're having a problem with sound and your EQ, the best thing to do is remove something before you boost. It's always better to try and cut and use subtractive sound than try to add, because if you add, you have a chance of maybe adding to the problem. Whereas if you're cutting, you're better off subtracting and then putting back what maybe is missing. So always try and cut first and then.
Great, thanks. That's awesome. Okay, we've got another question. I'm putting it up there from Jason. It says, what is your favorite song to play, and anything you play first when you get a new dulcimer?
Oh, those are good questions. My favorite song to play. Wow. It's kind of weird, but it changes, and it depends on moods or earworms or just what feels right. You ever pick up something and you just start playing something? For the longest time, it was Sandy River Bell. Whenever I picked up a dulcimer, my fingers just started playing Sandy River Bell.
Yeah.
And then it changed to something else. So right now, my favorite song to play would probably be "I Would Do Anything for Love, But I Won't Do That" by Meatloaf. Because I figured it out in December, and it's just so much fun to play. It's long as I'll get out. I play the album version, so it's like the 11-minute version.
Oh yeah.
But it's just I can't help it, and I have to play through the whole thing. It's not like I don't know it. It's just I love it. So I think that's my favorite song to play right now.
It just brings joy. That's the way I do it too.
It'll change. It'll become something else. And as far as a song that I always play when I'm trying a new dulcimer. To be honest, I will have to say it would be Sandy River Bell.
See, there is a song that you just that's your go-to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a go-to for something.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to the next one. I'm trying to use this fancy thing where I put them up there. It didn't go.
That's really cool. I saw it start to do it.
Come on. Get up there. Yeah, I messed it up somehow.
There it goes.
Okay, it's from Victor. It says, do you ever see dulcimer played in regions other than the U.S. and the England, Ireland areas?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the places that I think it's the coolest is Singapore. Oh. Some of you out there might be familiar with Ivan. Goes by a couple different names, but when I first met him, it was Ivan Ng, and he's from Singapore, and he was my student for a very, very brief time, and when he was 15 years old. And I'll never forget, I was over somebody's house. I was over at Jerry Rockwell's house, and he started playing a track, and it was me playing Juke Joint Hen, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like, and then I listened to it some more, and I'm like, Jerry, what are you listening to? And then I heard me do something I'd never done with Juke Joint Hen before. And I went, what in the world is that? I came around, and it was this Ivan. It was one of my students. Mm-hmm. I went, what in the world? So I hadn't heard from him for a while, and he had started his own band, and he plays out in Singapore. I'm not sure how old he is now. We've talked every once in a while, but he has done amazing things with the mountain dulcimer out there. He's a busker. He's playing in these songwriting competitions and Battle of the Bands, front and center with the mountain dulcimer. It's really amazing thing to see. So if you're out there somewhere, Ivan, keep it up,
Oh,
buddy.
that's awesome. I love
It's
that.
really cool. There's a
Yeah.
pretty good Australian presence of mountain dulcimer between Adrian Koski, and then there's a group called Aela, I believe. So I've seen it down in Australia.
Yep.
There are at least one friend of mine has played me some mountain dulcimer from Syria. So there is actually some mountain dulcimer that's found its way up that way or down that way in Syria. Really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Do a little search on YouTube, and I think you'll be surprised. When I look at my analytics, I know you do, Mandy, to see where
Yes.
people are tuning in from. Really
Oh, yeah.
surprising to see how many
Yes.
people are from all around the world very interested in the mountain dulcimer, and it's great. I like to see that.
I love it. It is. And you know, one thing I've been doing lately is shorts, because I don't know if you've delved into that any with your YouTube, but shorts are just the vertical shot. So you get the vertical shot on your phone, less than a minute long.
Yeah.
And turn those on, and that'll really reach a very different audience. So I mean, it's really kind of cool to try that out. I don't know if you're interested in that at all, but I've noticed that big time on my analytics on the shorts for sure.
Right.
So it's pretty cool. Okay, so next, I'm sure you probably have more than one of these, but think about a funny road story. So you're on the road, which you do a lot, you know, and I know it's been a while, but I bet you've got some good, funny stories to share with us.
Oh goodness. Wow. Well, that depends on what you consider good.
Yeah.
Um,
Not the breakdown. My car, you know, my camper broke down, and those are terrible. I feel so bad when I see that.
you know,
But
okay, I've got a real good one
okay,
actually.
good.
So I'm driving through Texas, and I stopped to get gas in Amarillo, and so I'm getting back on the road, and right when I'm getting on the highway, boom, bubblegum lights, jargon for police flashers on behind me. I'm like, oh man, what's all that about? So I get out my registration, all that stuff. He comes sauntering around. I roll down the window. I still had Rita, which is my old Toyota-based RV, little tiny RV, you know, with a big tortoiseshell in the back. He's like, hey, can I see your license and registration? Yeah, here you go, officer. Do you know why I stopped you? I said, I have no idea. He goes, oh, you have a light out back there, tail lights out. I'm like, oh, I had no idea, man. Can I get out and see? He's like, yeah. I come around the back, and I'm like, well, gosh, look at that. Well, I'm glad you stopped me, because this would have been a ticket all over the place. He's like, yeah, I know what you mean. He goes, well, where are you heading? Because normally you RV guys are like in bed by now.
Yep.
I'm like, well, I'm a musician. I'm on my way to a festival. And he's like, a musician? And I'm back in the rig by now. He's at the window. He's like, a musician? What do you play? I said, oh, I play mountain dulcimer. He went, a what? And I said, an Appalachian mountain dulcimer. He's like, I think I heard of that. Well, what exactly is it? So we're on the on the shoulder. I talked to him about some mountain dulcimer. He's like, really? Well, that sounds really cool. I've always wanted to learn how to play something. So that sounds like the right thing. And I said, tell you what, this is my card. Give me a holler. Give me a chance to get back home again from tour, and I'll be happy to help you out, and I'll get you tuned in real mountain dulcimer. He's like, oh, that'd be great. Well, I'm not going to give you a ticket or anything, but be careful out there and get that fixed. And he looked at the card. He goes, dulcimer. This is cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Back. But that to say, I've had a lot of interactions with people over from, you know, people picking me up because the rig broke down, the mechanic, to somebody at a gas station, to just passing through town, where the mountain dulcimer has come into the conversation somehow. And they've been intrigued enough to say, you know, I'm going to follow up with that. So it's kind of like the Johnny Appleseed approach.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome. And when you're traveling around and everything, have you kept track? I know you've been doing this for years, but Have you kept track of how many states you visited?
I have, and I think it's a lot easier to keep track of where I haven't been,
Yeah.
which is Montana
Yeah.
and North Dakota. And I
Okay.
think that's it as well. And then Alaska and Hawaii as far as touring.
Well, yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So next time you go somewhere, you're gonna have to like scoot up just to the edge of Montana, or you know,
And I was
get
close
out of the
before. I don't know why I was in Wyoming heading to Oregon. I could have just did a little bump and got, right
Yeah,
off the bucket list.
you're gonna have to do that because you got to cross all those off.
I
I mean,
know.
you've been to that many. That is awesome. And what do you think? I know at one time I saw somewhere some estimate of the miles you drove per year. Do you have that? What was
It, it,
that?
I averaged about 35 to 40,000 miles a year between 2011 and 2018.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I cut that way back in the
Yeah.
final, like 2019, before heading out, because I just didn't like being on the road that long. I was on the
Yeah.
road for 3 months, like straight, without
Yeah.
coming home, and it was just tough. But it's really tough to get out of Florida because Orlando is way down deep in the belly of the state, and to head up to where it's a quick drive to cross state lines, it takes you so long to get there. So once you're out, it sort of behooves you to save money on gas and just stay rolling. You know.
Yeah. Sure. For sure. So, I mean, I bet it's crazy for you trying to schedule all these things. You almost need a manager giving you, scheduling all these things. If you're going almost 40,000 miles a year, wow.
It would be nice to have a manager. It would be nice
Yeah.
to have somebody else do all the work, but also I don't think that would work nearly as well with the mountain dulcimer community, because here, I mean, everybody does all their own booking and we make all our own connections. You can't have your people call a mountain dulcimer place. Oh yeah, our client would like to come play your mountain dulcimer festival.
I know that sort of cracks me up. Just
That ain't
thinking
gonna.
of, but okay. If you've got any questions for Bing, now's the time because we've only got a few more minutes we're going to be on here. So think about it and take a minute and get those questions out there if you have any more for them. Other than that, going back to the string gauges and stuff, I'm interested in all this stuff too because obviously I play too. But do you play? Do you find yourself playing a lot of baritone or not?
Yes, yes, yes. I love the baritone. In
Yeah.
fact, I had a breakthrough moment that was witnessed by another person at the Folkcraft location there in Woodburn, Indiana. I don't remember what year it was of the Indiana Dulcimer Festival, but we were still out in the parking lot with a big white tent. So it was one of the earlier years. And for whatever reason, I decided to grab a baritone instead of using what I would normally use for a couple of tunes. So it's tuned to A, E, A, and I'm playing this song. And as I was A, E, E. So I was 155. And I was just having a grand old time because it felt right. And it felt like I should have been singing here all the time. As you know, if you sing and play with the mountain dulcimer in DAD or DAA, there's something about the key of D that's really hard for men and for women. There's something about the key that's a little tough, right? So oftentimes we sing in the key of C. A step down makes it easier. But for me, the key of A flat, that's a really good chest voice range for me. And I didn't think about it. So playing the baritone, everything was in a very natural range. So afterwards, not Richard Ash, but Richard, who was our sound guy, he comes up afterwards. And if you have to know Richard's kind of like this old school hippie guy, right? And he goes, I was watching you up there on stage. You were having an epiphany, weren't you? I was like, yes, I was, Richard. And I need to be playing and singing more on the baritone because it suits my voice better. And just playing in that key is better. And that put me in mind talking about, if you play the mountain dulcimer and you sing with it, but you're having a hard time with D and you're not necessarily playing with somebody else, then try playing in CGC and singing with it. I haven't been able to find out why we are playing in the key of D all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we end up stuck there, and we try and shoehorn everything we do there in that key. Change keys to suit you. And one of the
Yeah.
easiest things you can do to find out where your range is a great little trick. Pretend you're seeing somebody across the street that you know and call out to them. Hey, don't think about it. Just say it. And then do it again, but sustain the note. Hey, and then grab a tuner and see what that note is. And if you have a tuner that'll show you the octave, the little number next to it, take
Mm-hmm.
note of that as well. And that's going to be somewhere in the middle of your chest range. And whatever key that is, that's going to be the best place for you, where you naturally speak and conduct, where it's, it just feels normal for you.
Yeah. Right.
And then you can kind of always build up from there if you want to be more mannered with your singing. But try that. And I think you'll find that most of us are nowhere near D.
Sometimes I like D, but I really like C. So going down to CGC, I really like, especially for those, those waltzes and stuff. I love that, those sorrowful songs. Lori asks, what are your thoughts on the 6-string dulcimer?
I love the 6-string dulcimer. I don't really use it a whole bunch because it's not a tool that I need to use a whole bunch. You can use it a number of different ways. And when we talk about 6-string dulcimer, we're talking about double courses, 3-string courses, and each one's a double. And then you can string them a certain way. You can make each string a unison pair where they're the exact same pitch, or you can make an octave pair that has more of a shiny kind of a Rickenbacker 12-string guitar sound, or a mixture of the combination of those. And largely it is to give you more volume, to more texture and more power. That's why Jimmy Page had a 2-neck guitar. One was a standard 6-string, and then the other one was a 12-string. It fattened the sound up. So that might also be an answer to your question, Mandy, about being between two dreadnoughts. One way to fight back is to get yourself through strings, play 6-string, and that'll help you cut the mustard. Well, the galax back, absolutely. And that'll help you cut through the mustard quite a bit. But I like the 6 strings. It's hard to be subtle with them, and it can be a little difficult, and the picking can be a little brittle if you're trying to do quiet stuff. It's not that it's impossible to do, but if you're trying to do more ballady type stuff, having the double courses can be in the way. So I think it depends largely on the style of music that you're playing and the ensemble you're trying to fit in with. Again, it's all a matter of trying to carve up that piece, that loaf of bread that is the sound spectrum, and find a place for you to live in it along with everybody else.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of like if you think about the 12-string guitar, and when people would use that, like I know Lori is one of my students. She loves John Denver, and a lot of his, he played the 12-string a lot there, and that was cool. That was really cool. But let's move on to our next question, and that is from Richard. He says, the 1.5 fret has been standard for you for a while now. Are we heading the dulcimer community towards full chromatic setup being standard?
No. And I think that's a good thing. I think having the option of being chromatic is great for people who are ready for that. Yeah. I think the 6.5 being a standard is a great thing. I think that more people warming up to the 1.5 and 8.5, pair is a great thing. And that's a wonderful new standard to have, because it gives you just enough extra option, to work. But if you've got the 1.5, 8.5, then you're only 3 notes away from being fully chromatic. But I think it's about a level of comfort for people. And then there are people who don't want to have any of the half steps and be purely diatonic. I think it's really awesome that the mountain dulcimer can live and have these different versions of it, and the baritone and the resonator and the lapjo, and they can all coexist side by side, and they serve as different type of dulcimer filters.
Yes.
Different applications. So I don't think we'll ever again see just a one standard type of dulcimer, like we have different types of guitars and different types of mandolins. And I think chromatic is great to be able to have all the options, but there's something really very, very special about training ourselves to sort of think diatonically, because when you think about it, most music that we play, even though the instrument has the ability to play chromatically, most music isn't necessarily chromatic. It's mostly diatonic. It's very simple stuff that we're doing. the mountain dulcimer really easily trains our ears to living in a 7-note world. And so I think it actually makes us stronger players by knowing what those parameters are, so that when something sticks out, we can more easily say, that's a chromatic element. How am I going to treat that? So it's really interesting. But yeah, I think they'll all kind of hang out together in a group. And I think that's neat about our instrument.
I agree there. And I really, it's so funny that there are all those options, and that people, I mean, you'll find people that still play the old truly diatonic too, and they love it and they wouldn't change it for the world. And more power to them. It's awesome. I love all the different options out there. And that 1.5 especially, I just got that a year and a half ago, was my first ever experience with it. Love it. I mean, just love it. All those blue notes you can get out of that thing, I love it. But yeah, I think that's good too. Allie, hey Allie.
Hey, Allie, what's up, girl?
She says she loves CGC, and that's true. It's a beautiful, beautiful tuning.
And you can still play all your old tab, especially if you're not playing with the ensemble. You can play all your normal DAD tab, just taking it down.
Yep.
We get back to string gauges. When you start going lower, you want to take up the tension. Otherwise, your touch will be spongy and your intonation may go sharp on you. So I usually tend to bump up to the next level string. And sometimes these numbers go in twos. You can't find the next number up. For some of those strings, like the bass strings, they go up in twos. So if you're going to be going down from DAD to CGC, I might recommend going to 0.015 on the melody string, 0.017 middle, 0.026 bronze wound on the bass, or even a 28 for CGC, so that everything sounds crisp and tight and good instead of kind of mushy and sad, And the lower we tune down, the more we need to use higher pitch strings to keep the intonation good. Right.
I believe that we're about out of time. I did have one more question, but I believe that was kind of I think you already covered that, but if you want to cover that briefly, when did you first start learning music and playing your first instrument, which would be before the dulcimer, probably?
Yeah. I took music. My father was a music major in college. So he set me up for music in 4th grade, and I began playing clarinet in 4th grade. And that was my instrument through grade school, middle school, and high school, all the way up through, marching band, from parades and field shows to symphonic winds and things like that. So I was very much wanted to be a musician for the rest of my life, even as a student in school. So yeah, it was clarinet, and then I kind of taught myself piano in high school and started learning theory and marrying that. But I did not start learning theory for the mountain dulcimer and theory for music theory in general until probably 2006. Believe it or not, I was still playing by ear at that point. So all the theory teaching I do now and the books I have out, that's all stuff I taught myself since 2006, because I realized that I could read monophonically, right? I could read one note at a time if it was a clarinet, but I didn't understand the theory behind it because you didn't need to. You were a one note at a time instrument. Chord theory wasn't something that was considered. So there was a whole area of music theory I didn't understand. And I was all by ear, which is great until you have to explain it to somebody else. And my band was like, Bing, right here at measure 37, what chord is that? And I'd say, it's the chord that sounds like this.
Yeah.
And that's all I had for them, So teaching myself music theory and urged on by Jerry Rockwell and Robert Forrest was one of the best things I ever did. I still don't know everything about music theory, but I know enough to be able to teach others enough music theory to be dangerous. And understand more what you're doing with the instrument.
Very nice, very nice. And one more thing someone said, let's see, let me put this up because this will be our last one. And L. Mallard says, hello to both of you. I just got on. Will this show repeat? Yes. Okay. So if you're coming in late to this, you can just find this on the channel later today. YouTube will process it, and that'll take a little bit. and then it'll be available. You can rewatch it and all that. So it'll be here for you, okay? So before we go, I just want to say thank you so much, Bing, for letting me interview you. It's been my pleasure. And
Thank you.
it's just such a lovely world out there, you know, the dulcimer world. I just love it. It's just absolutely amazing.
It is an amazing community. And I want to say I got into it very late. If it wasn't for Seifert, I probably would have been a long time coming. He wrote me in and said, come out to the Dulcimer festivals. I met all these wonderful people.
Nice.
And back then on YouTube, there was not a whole lot of options for people who were studying dulcimer. And now there are tons of options of all different types. And I've told you this before, Mandy, but you are phenomenal in your presentation, not only on dulcimer, but on banjo. Everything that you're doing with your channel is so strong and so inspirational, and you're serving a wonderful purpose. So thank you for doing what you're doing. And I'm glad that you're on board as an endorsing artist for Fullcraft, because Richard needs more soldiers. We need more Johnny Appleseeds and Joan Appleseeds to preach the gospel of the mountain dulcimer and get it in as many hands as possible. And you do a great job with that. So
amen to that. Well, thank you very much. And I thank everybody out there for joining us today. And don't miss the other live streams coming up, okay? We'll be announcing those. And again, go to Bing's website. Go to his YouTube channel. Check him out. And if you got $5 a month, get over there to his Patreon and kick in for him. He needs it, okay? He's got a lot of traveling to do. So anyway, all right. Well, thank you so much. And I'll just say goodbye and sign off of here.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, y'all.